Papa Europe way, so maybe I can help Papa. Weet je wat er zijn missions? Come yes. Say hi. I looked at the serious looking missions today and I wanted to call you.
And welcome to Goodnight Chabad Youth. Today I'm going to read a book called As Big as an Egg. Now this is a true story and it's a story about giving and it's by Rochel Sandman, which is a very, very special book and it has really, really beautiful lessons for all of us. Here we go. As big as an egg. And we can see here a sack full of little portions of bread. And that's going to be what our story is about. Now, this story took place in Russia many years ago during the war when there was not a lot of food to eat. The night was cold. The line was long. Chaim was very tired after working all day. He was very hungry as he waited and waited to buy one small loaf of bread. Very sadly, in Russia at that time, there was not a lot of food. So people had to line up for a long time in a line in order to get food. If we can try to compare it in a very, very small way, when COVID first hit here and a lot of the shelves were empty of food because everyone was running to get them because they were worried and there was very little toilet paper, it was like that in Russia, but so much sadder because there was no food to be bought. And they had to wait in a very long line to get one loaf of bread. So even if they had been at work the whole day and were so tired, they couldn't just go to the supermarket or just go home and have food. There wasn't any food. They had to line up every day to get one loaf of bread. One small loaf of bread on Monday, one small loaf of bread on Thursday. That was all anyone could buy during the years in Russia during the war. Just 2 loaves of bread a week. That's all they could eat for the whole week. Chaim, like everyone in the bread line, had a special card. In order to buy bread, he needed to show his card at the bakery. Finally, it was his turn. Chaim held out his bread card and got his loaf of bread. And we can see how long the line is. And everyone is waiting for their one loaf of bread. One loaf of bread on Monday and one on Thursday. That's all the food they could eat. Chaim was happy to be going home. He wanted to eat a fresh piece of bread and to drink some hot tea before he went to sleep. As Chaim walked out of the bakery, he saw Buba Hinda. There she stood with her bulging sack. He tried to leave quickly before Buba Hinda would see him, but Buba Hinda did see Chaim. And this is Buba Hinda, and she has her big sack full of little pieces of bread. And he's leaving with his loaf, and he's trying to quickly go before she sees him. Can you see him up the top there? She came over to him and asked, "Will you please give me a piece of your bread to bring to people who are sick? They don't have any bread because they are too sick to wait in line with their bread cards. Please put some of your bread in the sack." So Buba Hinda is collecting bread for those people who are too sick to line up because it's very cold and it's very tiring to wait in the line and they're too sick. So Buba Hinda has to collect bread and bring it to them because if they don't line up, they don't get bread. Chaim was very, very hungry, but he wanted to eat all of his own loaf of bread. He didn't want to share it, but Chaim could not say no to Buba Hinda. Buba Hinda opened her sack. Chaim looked inside and saw the many little pieces of bread that other people had given her. From his own crusty loaf, Chaim pulled off a piece of bread about as big as an egg. With a little sigh, he dropped it in the sack. Buba Hinda smiled at Chaim. She said, "Soll sein zum mitzvah," which means may you merit to do many more good deeds. Chaim went home. He was very hungry. He felt a little sorry that he had given away some of his bread. He really didn't want to share it because he was very hungry and he had waited a long time to get his bread, and this bread had to last him until Thursday. But he knew that he couldn't say no to Buba Hinda for the poor people. The next time Chaim was able to buy bread, he went to a new bakery that was near his work. He held out his bread cart, he got his loaf of bread. Chaim clutched the crusty loaf to his chest as he hurried home. And there's everyone waiting in the line and Chaim getting his bread. He was glad Buba Hinda was not there with her bulging sack and asking him for bread to feed the sick people. He was glad that he had all the bread to himself. At home, Chaim washed his hands. He pulled off his chunk of fresh bread and said the bracha. He took tiny bits of bread and sipped his tea slowly to make his little meal last longer. After thanking Hashem for the food, Chaim wrapped up the rest of his bread, said Shema, and went to sleep. And that's his little house. He's got a little hot water urn. And that's all he has for his dinner. The next day, when Chaim came home from work, he thought he heard a scurrying sound. He thought he saw something run into a hole in the wall. He thought he saw the tip of a tail shaking like a scolding finger. Chaim took out his bread and found that a piece was missing. A piece about as big as an egg. Even though he didn't give the piece of bread to Buba Hinda, he's got a piece of bread missing about as big as an egg. Chaim was very annoyed. He looked around the room and closed up all the holes he could find. Then he washed his hands and sat down to eat his bread and drink his tea. "I must be more careful with my bread next time," Chaim said to himself. In a few days, Chaim came home from the new bakery with another loaf of bread. He ate his meal, then he wrapped his bread carefully and put it away on the highest shelf in his house. Now his bread was safe. Do you think it's going to be safe? Let's wait and see. Chaim smiled as he said Shema and went to sleep. Look at his patchwork quilt that he has. That has to keep him very warm because in Russia it is very, very cold, and especially at night, and they didn't have any heating in their homes. Imagine being in the coldest Russian night and no heating. And plus they were hungry, and when you're hungry you're even colder. When Chaim came home from work the next night, he thought he heard a scurrying noise. He thought he saw something run by. He thought he saw the tip of a tail shake like a scolding finger. Chaim pulled down his bread from the shelf and saw that a piece was missing. A piece about as big as an egg. Chaim was upset as he washed his hands. He was upset as he ate his bread and drank his tea. I must be even more careful with my bread next time, said Chaim. Look how high he's putting it, hoping he can hide it. A few days went by, and Chaim came home from the bakery with another loaf of bread. He ate his bread and drank his tea. Then Chaim had an idea. He wrapped his bread carefully and hung it from the ceiling with a thin, slippery piece of thread. Have a look. He's hanging it now from the ceiling. Now his bread was really safe. Chaim smiled as he said Shema and went to sleep. The next night, when Chaim came home from work and opened the door, he thought he heard a scurrying sound. He thought he saw something run by. He thought he saw the tip of a tail shake like a scolding finger. Chaim jumped on a chair, pulled his bread off the slippery thread, and saw that a piece was missing. A piece about as big as an egg. Chaim began to wonder about the missing bread. He was thinking about it as he washed his hands. He was thinking about it as he ate his bread. He was thinking about it as he drank his tea. Finally, Chaim said to himself, "Not all of my bread is meant for me. Some belongs to Bubba Hinder's mitzvah sack." He finally realized that even though he wants all the bread to himself and he is so hungry, he still needs to share with others. And it's a very important lesson, because sometimes we, let's say, bring our snack to school and we want all of it because it's so delicious. It's a delicious bag of chips. And our friend says, "Can I have one?" And we think, "Oh, I really want it all for myself. I don't get chips very often, and my mother finally gave them to me for Rosh Chodesh." And how special is it if we still share, even if we want it so much for ourselves? And that was very special, something he realized, that even though he wants it so much, it still need to help other people and to give to others and give tzedakah. The next time Chaim was able to get bread, he went back to the old bakery. The night was cold, the line was long. Chaim was very tired and very hungry. Finally, it was his turn to show his card and get his small loaf of bread. As Chaim came out of the bakery, he saw Bubba Hinder holding her bulging sack. He ran right to her and said, "Please take some of my bread for the sick people." Bubba Hinder opened her sack and Chaim dropped in a piece of bread, a piece about as big as an egg. Sorry, I read it wrong. This time he dropped in a piece about as big as 2 eggs. He realizes how important tzedakah is, and not only does he give 1 piece, he gives 2 pieces. Bubba Hinder smiled at Chaim and said, "Soll sein zum mitzvah. You should continue doing mitzvahs." And Chaim smiled back. This time he's giving with love. He realizes the importance of giving to sick people. And you know what? When we want to do a mitzvah and give to others and give tzedakah, it could be our food, sharing. It could be money, giving Mesa 10% every time that we earn some money or get money for a birthday gift. but it also be giving of our time. If a friend of ours says, can you please help me? I don't know how to do the homework. And we say, oh no, we're too busy. We have to do our own homework. But if we stop for a minute and give our time or help someone else with anything in the playground at school maybe, then that is also giving tzedakah, giving of ourselves. When Chaim got home that night, he opened the door slowly and peeked inside. He thought he felt something scurry across his foot. He thought he saw something run outside. He thought he saw the tip of a tail shake, like a friendly hand waving goodbye. Now I'm just going to read the back of this because this is very, very special. This is a true story based on an event in the life of Buba Hinda Deitch. This was a real story about a woman called Buba Hinda Deitch. She lived many, many years ago, from 1883 till 1973. So she passed away probably about 50 years ago, a little less. She never knew about her mitzvah helper during the time she spent in Samarkand during the Second World War. This happened in Samarkand in Russia during the Second World War. Chaim himself told this story to some of Buba Hinda's children and grandchildren shortly after she passed away. So after she passed away, Chaim, it's not his real name, he came to Buba Hinda's children and grandchildren and told them about this story. Her granddaughter, called Rachel Sandman, finally put this story, a family favorite, in writing for children everywhere to enjoy. So her grandchild heard the story from Chaim and she decided to write it into a book for all of us to enjoy. The author lives in Connecticut with her family. So Rachel Sandman lives in Connecticut in America and wrote this story for us to enjoy and teach us this very, very special lesson. Okay, good night, everyone. Have a good night.